questions to ask when you're interviewing is one of my favorite topics because it can completely change your experience with a job and set you up really well or really poorly for longevity in that setting. So let's rapid fire go through these. What's the employment structure? And by employment structure, are you hospital employed or employed by a group that's contracted with the hospital? If there's nurse anesthetist and anesthesiologist that work at the institution, are they both on the same structure? Or is one group hospital employed and one group employed? It seems silly, but that model isn't rare. And then do you see change on the horizon for that, right? What APRNs does the hospital employ? Just getting a kind of a general vibe check for how the hospital sees advanced practice nurses. Are they using nurse practitioners? Are they using midwives, clinical nurse specialists, etc.? Another question along those lines is, are advanced practice nurses part of medical staff, and do they have medical staff voting rights? This isn't necessarily a deal breaker to have voting rights or not have them, but again, it will tell you about the current culture of the institution as it relates to advanced practice nurses. How many CRNAs or anesthesia providers is the hospital hiring right now? If you're interviewing to fill one of 1 spots or one of 20 spots, you're jumping into 2 different totally scenarios there, right? So you would like to know. Does the hospital employ AAs in their anesthesia department? What attrition of CRNAs and anesthesiologists has the hospital had in the last 12 months? That can really tell you about the culture of a place, right? If everybody's getting out, you may want to slow your roll before you get in. And ask for the contact information for the last nurse anesthetist that resigned from that institution. They may or may not give it to you, but their answer to this question, no matter what, will be telling of the leadership culture there. What is the chain of leadership for the department? I know of anesthesia departments where the decision makers and the people ultimately in charge have no anesthesia clinical background, and that can be challenging, right? Is there a chief anesthesiologist? Is there a chief CRNA? Is the hospital or entity you're interviewing with freestanding and independently owned or part of a larger health system? And the reason this matters is if they're part of a larger system, then changes to improve clinical and professional environment can be harder and move slower, right? Because you are moving through an entire system. What's the pay range? Where does it start? Where does it max out? When was it last adjusted? All very good questions. Continuing ed money. The continuing ed money bucket seems to be getting smaller and smaller, but because I think it does speak to the culture of workplaces towards advanced practice nurses, it can be a big satisfier or dissatisfier. How much is it? Can you roll it over if you don't spend it? Is it use it or lose it, in the fiscal or the calendar year? And then what can you spend it on? Can you spend it on virtual experiences? Can you spend it on international trips? Can you spend it on equipment like cell phones or iPads or, resources like apps that you need to do your job? PTO, is it front loaded or earn as you go? Front loaded, it would dump in at the beginning of the fiscal or calendar year. If it's 8 weeks, you get all 8 weeks up front. If it's earn as you go, then there's usually a equation that for every amount of hours you work, you earn this much PTO. I'm going to let you in on a little secret that has served me very well when I'm taking a new position where I'm going to be staff. When I'm ready to accept it, I say, hey, I'm ready to accept this position. I'm so excited. I do have these at least 2 or 3 weeks of things I've already committed to in the upcoming year. And I make sure that those weeks that I request to be approved up front are spaced out throughout the year, and that some of them are during prime time. That's difficult to get off for anesthesia because depending on how the department handles taking paid time off, you're going to be low man on the totem pole, And they may tell you, like, well, you could have the, end of October, the middle of November off, and that's it. So advocate for yourself and get those dates on the books up front. Does PTO pay out at the end? Like, if you would move on from there and they allow you to accrue PTO, does it get paid out, or is it use it or lose it? When you leave, it's gone.